So we took our little detour off the project narrative highway to talk about budgets, and now we're hopping back on, and we're going to talk about the evaluation and technical support capacity portion of the grant. So in this section, this is taken directly from the FOA, and it describes a little bit about what they're looking for in here. So basically the way to think about this is how you're going to evaluate the goals and objectives that you've talked about earlier in your work plan. So you want to make sure that you can demonstrate that you have a carefully designed and well-planned evaluation plan capable of demonstrating and documenting measurable progress toward reaching your project's stated goals. So you'll also want to keep in mind, this is a section where you're going to include your data collection plan related to the EMSC performance measures and the PEDS Ready survey. So we've all had this, yes?
So when it says illustrate the project current status, does that mean and in the first year, like what you've done in the past 6 years?
That is an excellent question.
So currently we are here, but we're going to project.
Let's go back and take a look at that slide. So here we're talking about
the current status.
The current.
So fiscal year 2013. Where are you right now?
T,
Is that kind of?
Do you know that you want? If you're looking for the previous.
Yeah. Okay, so up to this point.
Funding cycle or. Okay, sure.
What she said, sorry.
She's reading.
Oh, okay.
Include current experiences.
Oh, I think he's referring to this first sentence up here where this section of the project narrative serves to illustrate the applicant's process for evaluating the project's current status.
So here we are, fiscal year 2013. The way I'm literally looking at it is, where are you right now in 2013? And how are you going to now progress over the next 4 years?
You're going to
Is that
measure
correct?
your progress.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thanks, team.
So what's the answer? Exactly what John said. Where you are right now and how you're going to progress over
In the next 4 years.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks for clarifying. So in terms of the review criteria, you'll want to review the evaluative measures and resources and capabilities. There are 15 points potentially possible, and NEARC has kind of estimated that probably it'll take you about 7 to 10 pages to work through this section, and there are no associated attachments. So we'll talk about evaluation and technical support capacity separately. So first thing, your evaluation plan is dependent on the activities that you proposed in the methodology and the work plan sections. And you'll want to be sure to evaluate each goal that you previously listed. Oh, I was going to mention that the FOA that's on page 26 of the FOA if you're making notes. So here, your evaluation plan must be capable of demonstrating and documenting measurable progress towards reaching your goals through achievement of objectives. When I say measurable progress, or you read that in the FOA, what kind of things, what kind of language comes to mind? What else? Especially experienced grant writers. Completed. How about numbers, percentages, things that you want to reach. So that's kind of the mindset that you'll want to, you'll keep in mind when you're working on this section. So some of the details that you'll want to put in here, according to the FOA, are the current experience, skills, and knowledge of your key personnel, any materials that you've published, previous work that you've done with stakeholders, your data collection strategy, and what process you're going to use to monitor your project. So when you see this, you might be thinking, this sounds familiar, like I feel like I've already talked about this. And you have. You've talked about it a little bit in attachments 1 and 2, when you're talking about job descriptions and biographical sketches. And you're going to talk about it again in the next section that Patty's going to talk about. So one thing you want to keep in mind is as you're working through these sections, make sure your information is consistent in all these places. So also you're going to want to talk a little bit about your data collection strategy for these 2 data collection processes. And we've got an example here. So Amber started off with this example yesterday about goals and objectives for performance measure 71. And then Mike furthered that a little bit in his talk. So we wanted to give you an example of what your evaluation goal might look like. Would somebody be willing to read that?
I haven't heard from Yolanda.
Yolanda, read the next part. Joe reading the goal evaluation.
You're about to hear from her in a minute.
Go ahead, Joe.
The state's long-term goal is that online medical direction be available to EMS at least 90% of the time and be given by qualified medical personnel. God knows what that means. We plan to assess how often the medical direction was available to providers when needed, and the certification of an individual medical professional providing the medical direction by conducting a needs assessment of EMS agencies during the 2013-14 grant year and achieving a response rate of some percent.
So does this make sense to people, this kind of language? How it's talking about what you're hoping to do. You're trying to get, see if it was 90% of the time. You're going to do a needs assessment, and you're hoping to achieve a response rate of whatever percent. All right, so we're going to move on to the technical capacity portion. So in this, yes?
So for each performance measure, we need to have a goal evaluation part to it and a technical support capacity part to it.
That's the example that we're going to show you is set up that way. Again, this is your grant, and you're going to have to make the final decision on how you've structured and organized it and what makes the most sense. But the example that we're going to show you is set up that way. So in the technical support capacity section, you're going to want to talk about the technical support that you'll need for the evaluation measures. In the next section of organizational capacity, you'll talk about your program's overall technical support. But this one, we want you to think about it in terms of the evaluation methods. So for example, if you're going to be doing some needs assessments, or you're going to be doing some talking with your agencies about equipment, whatever you're going to be doing, who's going to help you? Who do you need to help you within either your own offices, your own staff, or outside? So you'll want to mention maybe an IT or data person, if you have access to a statistician or an epidemiologist, HRSA folks, NEDARC folks, at NRC. So this is the kind of language that you would want to use at this point in evaluating these measures. So here's our same example. Oh,
can you say, like, under methods, like we're going to be using quantitative, qualitative methods, and specifically, or we just refer to who your support's going to be?
Well, you'll have talked about your methods in the methods section probably already.
Okay.
So here you're going to be wanting to talk about how you're going to evaluate that method.
Okay.
But maybe he's saying that, are you saying you might use qualitative methods to evaluate
Correct.
how...
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I misunderstood what you're saying.
So I would say that here in this section.
I believe you would.
Yeah.
That you might interview providers to find out why they don't have medical direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of barriers or, yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for that clarification. All right, here's our same example with performance measure 71, the goal, the objective. Here's how we're going to evaluate it. And then here's an example of what you might list to talk about the technical support capacity. Yolanda, would you be willing to read this? Patty made me do it. She's gonna give me $5 after. You don't have to do it if you don't want. Right, this paragraph, starting the national EMSC.
The National EMSC Data Analysis Resource Center, NEDOC, is a national resource center to assist state EMSC programs to develop the technical capabilities to collect, analyze, and utilize EMSC data. We plan to host our 2013-2014 needs assessment and performance measures using NEDOC's online assessment tools. I'm off the hook.
You're off the hook, see?
I'm not trying to be up here next.
I know Patty is up next. Yes.
Yeah, in the past, at least in the implementation manual and what we did on our reports, for the non-competents, there was very specific comments. Year one, certain percent, year two, certain percent, year three, a certain percent. Is that applicable here? What you have up there is our long-term goal. You don't have a specific year or date set to it.
Yeah, because at that time there were benchmarks, there were certain targets at the end of each measure. You won't be doing data collection every year in order to be able to provide those benchmarks, unless you were going to.
No, I was just curious if you needed something more specific, because in the past, matter of fact, the automatic report generated those numbers, whether you liked it or not. That was your goal. You had the right to that.
Is T's response, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I'm understanding that. We don't have to have a specific year benchmark.
Not unless internally, as you set up your strategies, you have a way to evaluate from year to year if you're making progress. You could set up an evaluation plan by the strategy or by the goal, as they're recommending.
That gives us
The latitude
flexibility.
to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
When you're doing the survey and when it's asking for technical support or it's going to help you get where you're trying to get, can you say the hospitals, because the hospitals will provide the answers to the survey? And that'll eventually give you the information to go back and help them with education or equipment and supplies.
If their letter supports us, they can do that.
What do the rest of you think?
Can you rephrase the question for us, Diane? I couldn't hear.
Would it be appropriate to list hospitals as one of your some of the technical support capacity, since they're going to be answering the questions and providing you the information that you need, and the results of that might help you kind of target your training and education needs?
And equipment and supplies. Like I heard her use the EMS agency as the example earlier about like talking to either your training officer or director about barriers to using medical or online direction. Can you use the hospitals in the same capacity?
What do you guys think? Has anybody done that? Let's pass those sugar candies around. Come on.
Well, if you want to think out loud, the survey that you're going to give to the hospital is a method. So that's a method, and the pediatric readiness survey is a method. Now, if you want to go to the hospital itself and say to their data management people, can you tell me how many people visit the emergency room, on July 4th over the past 5 years, and give me a trend? Then that would be using their technical resources. But I think just to say that because the hospital is going to take a survey, that's not a
well, not the
resource.
survey,
That's
but the
that's
answers from the survey.
I mean, I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, but they're not technically assisting you because they answered the survey. They're just answering the survey.
Yeah.
Technical assistance would be, for instance, I depend on the hospitals a lot to help me with education, that sort of thing, and they provide space or personnel or whatever. That's technical assistance in the hospitals, but answering the survey.
Do you have that kind of relationship, Elizabeth, that you can go to the hospital and say, hey, I need some data? Because then I would list that as a resource. That would be, to me, I'm using the hospital,
But don't
Entities.
include the survey part of it.
right, the survey to me is just a method.
A method in your methodology.
You think people,
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
In a way, we don't call them surveys, they're needs.
Needs
assessments.
assessment. Needs
Right.
assessment.
And really, you're talking about what is the support that you need to evaluate the goal. So they have to go together.
So the hospital association might be a support because they're going to get the hospitals, they're going to tell the hospitals you should participate. So maybe to reach your 80%, perhaps a hospital association, but the individual people you're doing the needs assessment to, probably not. But, you know, you have to work it out as you write your evaluation section.
All right, so what kind of questions, besides the awesome ones that you've already asked, can we answer about this section?